Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Manny Cabo, and welcome to another episode of Mojo for Musicians. And baby, I'm amazed in the way you love me all the time. Dude, I've been singing that song all morning because you gotta love some Paul McCartney early in the morning. But anyway, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening in whatever part of the world that you're listening in on this podcast, and welcome to another episode of Mojo for Musicians. Of course, I'm always thanking you guys for your continued support because I attribute all of my successes to you guys, to your kind and humbling patronage. Plus, it gives me the added bonus and pleasure of continuing this passionate dream of mine, to constantly uplift and entertain, but above all, educate my amazing family of global musicians out there. And also, I want to keep reminding you all to keep subscribing, keep rating, and keep reviewing the podcast and keep us in that top 1% of the best music podcasts in music around the world. And believe me, that's something that I'm very proud of. And again, it's because of all of you. Because I've said this a million times, and I suggest that you all start endorsing this theory, because my successes have essentially been a byproduct of my willingness to serve this incredible ecosystem of artists, because I know it's a tough industry, but I also know that there are opportunities and solutions. And that's why I created this podcast, to provide, as best as I can anyway, the solutions to sustain a career in this ever-changing industry that we call the entertainment business. All right, so let's dive right in with today's topic. And trust me, it's one of those that I believe is not only crucial, but at the top of the list for attaining great success in the entertainment industry, or in any industry for that matter. That's right. The topic I'm talking about is self-confidence. How not to worry about other people's criticisms and opinions. I've said this a billion times over, that criticisms and opinions never paid my bills. So I don't pay them any mind either. And all too often, I've seen the demise of so many talented artists because they were guided by the opinions and, dare I say, insecurities of others. And at the end of the day, I can't be more transparent about this, folks. And I've said this on multiple episodes, but it's worth repeating. Anyone who imposes their opinions or their criticisms or even hate upon you or anyone else for that matter, it's because they're projecting what they feel internally toward themselves. And that's not even the problem. I mean, sure, people have a right to their own opinions. That's not what I'm saying. But it becomes a problem when we start allowing those impressions to tailor our lives. Because once you start living to please those expectations, then that's when you delve down the rabbit hole of depression and self-doubt and self-loathing, fear. And the list is endless. And as you can see, none of them are good attributes. So for me, there's a sense of urgency to get these guidelines addressed, to hopefully prevent all of you out there from entertaining the concern of how people perceive us. Again, I want to stress that these tips came from my own experiences. And believe me, I had a plethora of them where I too, yes, believe it or not, I have been confronted with an onslaught of varying opinions, of which many were very derogatory. And these are the steps that I took to, let's just say, catapult myself into a place where now all criticisms, and I don't care who they're from, just bounce and ricochet off me like rubber, as if I was made out of armor. And I want to build that warrior-like resistance in you as well. So listen up, guys. My first tip, and probably the most powerful tip of all, and I learned this especially after this previous year, of some heavy loss, and beginning with the loss of my dad to COVID, I realized that life is way too damn short, and it could end at the drop of a hat. And I hate to sound somewhat morbid, but hear me out. If that scares you, then good, because I want you to be grateful for every single second that you have in this life to leverage your gifts, your abilities to their optimal potential. I mean, seriously, guys, do you really want a life that's dictated by others and how they like to see you? Hell no, that's stupid. It's ridiculous.
Start the day by making a conscious effort to say, all right, hear me out. I'm letting go and build that momentum. I've said it over and over and over. It's like building a muscle. You got to put in the work, you got to put in the reps, and every day catch yourself and say, I am perfect in my imperfections, and I'm happy with who I am. And I don't care how many times you guys got to go back and rewind that part. What I just said is love yourself for who you are. Do it until it's embedded in your brain, in your heart, and in your soul. The second thing is to get rid of the toxicity in your life, like immediately, right now. Well, not right now, you're going to listen to this episode, but you know what I mean. And find yourself some role model or a mentor who radiates the confidence that you seek. That's the influence that you should be entertaining and not the opposite. And it's incredible to me that most of these fears and doubts come from our own inner circles. That's when we need to be very careful and very selective who we allow in that circle of friends, as we call them. Because personally, for me, I think the term friends is a very loose term that's thrown around, as I said, loosely. Everyone to me is an acquaintance. Now, a friend is someone that you've known for close to 10 to 15 to 20 years that will be there unconditionally with no expectations except for appreciating you who you are. You see where I'm going with this? So take heed to my admonition. Be careful who you hang out with and be more selective with who you allow in your creative space and share your successes with. Thirdly, I always notice people, and I too used to do this all the time, and that's worry about the future and what's to come and what will people think of you if you don't achieve this level of success. Well, here's the truth, guys. Begin now, today, to live in the moment. Start creating what Esther Hicks coined as segment intending, which means what? It means your daily routine is broken up of segments, right? From the moment you wake up to the moment you brush your teeth, go to the gym, etc. Start intending positive outcomes for each and every one of those segments. Like, for example, before I pick up the phone, per se, to call a client or a contact, I'll say something like, as I step into this next segment, I intend to have a very successful phone call and have the words come out flawlessly and to be heard and understood. And I got to tell you guys, you'd be so surprised how you start building that momentum and that confidence because now you're dictating your future. Because the reality of it all is the best way to predict your future is by what? Maximizing and leveraging your abilities in the present. That makes perfect sense, right? So do it. This one's going to make you laugh because it's coming from a place of common sense. And that's stop asking people what they think about you, right? Now, there's a concept. It's incredible how people love the opportunity to impress their opinions upon you. But the sad thing is, most of those opinions come from a negative place. You ever notice that? Especially if you're onto something good, if you're succeeding. See the pattern that's going on here? Unfortunately, studies have shown that people want to see you fail. It sucks, but it's so true. And if you're competing for the same thing, forget about it, guys. They definitely don't want to hear about your accolades or you trumpeting your exploits. So again, stop asking people what they think. If you want advice, ask it from somebody who wants to see you grow and wants to see you succeed and who has a proven track record of success of their own accord. And finally, that was a mouthful. And finally, my favorite, stop trying to please everybody. Again, stop trying to please everybody because guess what? It's never going to happen. And here's the kicker. That's okay. If there's anything impossible in this world, that's it. Your only job is to keep creating and begin to understand and accept that people not liking you is okay. I mean, seriously, how egotistical are you to think and want to have 8+ billion people on this planet like you, right? Think about that for a second. You see how silly that sounds? So stop it. Go about your business, focus on you, come correct, and follow your truth. Because as they say, the truth shall set you free. And when we return, not only do I have an incredible talent who was part of one of the most influential bands throughout the disco era, but someone who's experienced cultural hardship, personal hardship, industry hardships, but has managed to overcome these obstacles by just learning to love himself. So don't go anywhere, guys. This is certainly going to be a lesson-oriented episode. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Mojo for Musicians podcast. To learn more about becoming a guest on the show to share your mojo with us, visit mannycabo.com and send us an email in the contact section. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, be sure to give us a positive review on your favorite listening platform. And now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back, everyone. And boy, I got to tell you, this one has been a long time coming. You know, I was supposed to have this incredible talent on a while ago, but as you all know, Hurricane Ida kind of threw a wrench into the mechanics of my life, if you will. But nonetheless, it's happening today. And just to give you a brief history, because there's just too much to highlight here with this guy. But just know that he was one of the co-founders of the group, the Village People, that, and I quote, changed the face of disco with the song YMCA. Now, if you haven't heard that song, guys, then you're definitely not from this planet. You know, he's an author, an actor, a fellow podcaster hosting the Disco Chronicles. So let's welcome to the show the part Lakota Sioux and part Puerto Rican sensation, Felipe Rose. What's up, Felipe? And welcome to Mojo for Musicians, my friend.
Hey, Manny. Good morning, everyone.
How are you, bro? Always great to talk to you, man. And it really is. It's kind of surreal. And all I can say, it's so great to finally have you on here because I know we've tried for some time now, ever since our last performance together in New York City a few months back, which was at the height of my battle with Hurricane Ida, which you actually witnessed because we were here standing in here, my house, this room, just a few days after the middle of all the mess. So in honesty, having you on the show is just so gratifying and fulfilling and even somewhat surreal. But moving on.
I went to see you, I think, if I recall.
Yes, absolutely. We were standing right here. You know, what is now my studio was once just chaos, you know. But, enough of that. I know you got tons on your plate right now, but you also have tons to share with our community of artists because you've been through a lot, man. And obviously some hardships of your own, you know, legally with your co-founders of the Village People. And I know currently you're going through a couple of personal strives as well. But I know you got a slew of exciting stuff as well that you're working on, including the podcast, you know, new music. So I won't keep you on too long, but I have some strategic questions revolving around the topic of self-confidence and not worrying about what other people think of you from both an artist and personal perspective. And what better person to ask than the one and only Felipe Rose, right? So tell me, man, how did you make it in the entertainment industry for so many decades? And granted, you didn't come out of it unscathed, but nonetheless.
Oh, you kidding me? That's an understatement.
But you sustained a 30-year plus career in one of the most difficult industries to do so, and yet you're still here and still making music. So tell me, how did you manage to overcome the criticisms and all the noise?
Well, the criticism, I try to move out of the way and ignore it. We're living in such a polarized time right now. It doesn't seem like you can't please anyone anymore. I have a feeling that it has a lot to do with the innovation that we're now living and using, which is the internet. And while all of that is helpful, it's also detrimental and dangerous for people.
Right.
So I try to navigate the waters and try to keep a positive attitude, but you can only do that for so long until your mental health starts to, you can see something happening, you can feel something happening. And then that means that in my situation, being a Capricorn, I pull back and shut everything down and just bring all the noise down, which is what I've been doing since the beginning of this year.
And how does it feel? Like it must be a constant fight. And listen, you must have some difficult conversations with people. You know, I know it's not easy to tell somebody that.
I don't have difficult conversations with people, Manny. At this point, I really don't even want people's advice, even if they're giving it to me for free. I'm just say thank you, but I'm okay. I'm not here to save the world. I just want to contribute and hope that, my contribution to the world and society and our lives, or this life that we're living, will mean something later. But that I'm not here to really impress anyone. I just put out a single out last summer. It just kind of went nowhere because, again, I think that a large portion of my fans around the world are entrenched with the image and my participation with the group. So it's very hard for them to walk away from that, let it go, and see that I'm traveling in another direction. Let's go with him and see where he takes us. So that's the frustrating part.
So they still see the Felipe Rose from the Village people.
Well, they still see the guy, I tried to change my image in the music video of Dance Again. And very, suited up with a fedora and all that, walking away from my native image. Because, at the end of the day, I still am a normal guy like you and everyone else.
Of course.
I put on a t-shirt, jeans, and try to just act normal and live a low-key life and not walk around dressed in my native attire, because I don't live that way.
Exactly.
And so therefore, people in their minds, it's very hard for them to let go of that. I'll try again. I'm going to go back into the studio one more time and we'll see what happens. And then after that, it's just probably means that I may have to just finally just leave the music industry and move into another medium in the entertainment industry. Yeah. I think I took music as far as I can go for me.
I guess it's a commonality thing because you're trying to be yourself, right? And still sustain the integrity of who you are and reinvent yourselves. Because let's face it, some of the biggest artists, you too, Aerosmith, the Beatles, have reinvented themselves, but you find it a little bit more difficult with this society?
But that's very different. That's very different because they weren't dressing up individually in sort of like, I call it today gay drag.
Okay.
The drag today is drag queens. That's the hottest thing right now.
Okay.
So the male gay drag was the Village People image.
Gotcha.
So if you're in a band and you're dressing up, yeah, that's difficult to walk away from. Whereas most bands, they don't dress the same unless they're like a Motown or a cappella group or something like that. So I feel that, again, image has a lot to do with it. And people are just stuck in their minds, they want to see one thing only. And I guess I just have to try to redefine who I am. Not saying that I need to shove it down people's throats. Or maybe do my next video in full drag, and that might become a huge sensation.
Right. And you know what's funny? I sometimes I have this conversation. It's like the last thing that you think might click is the thing that does. So
it's the most idiotic thing. You're right.
It really is. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to be true to myself, just like I know you are. So please don't ever walk away from music. And unfortunately, people's understanding of you doesn't mean that you're not great. It's just that they don't understand the greatness. Not yet. And if they haven't already from your tenure of over the years, then it's their loss. But I think that the idea, the explanation that you gave is very transparent. I totally appreciate you for, letting us know, because we all feel those frustrations when people just don't understand who we are. But
we're living, Manny, we're living in a world where everything is about numbers, clicks, likes. How many people are on your page, on your TikTok page, on your Instagram page?
Right.
And so when I sit down with, like, say, a website person that's maybe going to tweak my website or work on my website, or say I'm having a business meeting, they go to my social media platforms and they say to me, for who you are, your numbers are very low. They're like 1,000, maybe 2,000, not like 10, 15, 30, 40, 50,000 people at a time.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, again, it's basically what I'm putting out. When you go to Instagram is becoming like the straight porn now. If you don't take your clothes off, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I try to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong? Am I too spread out? or do I condense everything and make it just find me here and find me there?
No, I get it.
So it's different. It's very frustrating on a lot of levels.
Sure. Have you found something that currently works for you? That's in favor of
Not
what
at the
Felipe is?
moment.
Not at the moment. So you're still in that experimental phase. Yeah, listen.
I just pretty much put everything on hold because mentally speaking, I wasn't feeling well, and I know the signs of post-traumatic distress, and which hit me hard last year, and losing my producer of 30 years. So I got through that going into the studio and came out of that with the song Dance Again because we were all locked down during the pandemic.
Yeah, I remember that.
But then, of course, I got ready to go out this beginning of the first quarter, and then the second wave of the pandemic swung around. And this time I had everyone around me that had COVID. So I became paranoid, and I just stayed home. Right? And my shows that I had were pushed later into the year of 2022, and some I lost. So I'm just thinking if, it's better to just stay where I am and just wait and see that things can level down and I can reboot again.
Yeah.
But my mental health is the most important thing right now.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That's first and foremost. And you know what? There's so many of us out there that can relate to what you're saying. I mean, you don't have to sell me on that idea. I lost my dad to COVID, so I'm still PTSDing over that whole situation. So it's it's huge.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that, and I know about that. I just think that most of the world and this country is suffering through PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and many of us don't want to admit to that.
Yeah, but that's not to say that I'm not writing, painting on canvases at home, just keeping, staying away from social media because I don't need any white noise in my.
Right, exactly.
And doing a lot of reading and I am speaking to someone let's say a mental counselor via Zoom once a week, which is good. But he just feels that I just need to put priorities first. What's the most important in my life? Is my music important in my life or my art? Because let's face it, 40 years with the Village People was way too long than a shelf life.
I could empathize with you to a certain degree because you know what? You were with them a long time, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. But, in the interim of all that, there's a culmination of emotions that I'm sure transpired that we cannot cover in a half-hour conversation. But you're still here, man, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm supporting you and everything that you do. And with that, I guess we can segue into question number 2, which deals with the morals and the ethics, because I know I've acquired a deep-rooted sensibility of, this ideology of morality through parental guidance. But who would you say was your biggest influence in inspiring you to pursue your truth that led you to such a stellar career in the industry?
If there's one person that comes to mind, it's going to be Andre the Shield. A lot of people may not know who he is. But if you can go back and remember The Wiz, 8 Misbehaving, he's in Town right now on Broadway. He won a Tony like 2 years ago. He and I have shared the same birthdays.
Wow.
And he's 10 years older than I am. So I don't want to give away his truth. He was my mentor of really doing it professionally, like going and saying, okay, you really can do this. And, you don't need to be dancing in clubs because he met me before Village People. So that's how I was discovered, dancing and singing in the city. And listen, I had a great run. I am not crying, feeling sorry for myself. I'm just saying there's always one person that inspires. And so he is always in my ear. When I'm always doubting myself, I always remember that conversation that I had with him, where he says, you can do anything you set your mind to.
You got to have mentors in life, man.
Sure.
I confirm that myself because, in this industry, especially nowadays where everything is metrics oriented, it's difficult to do all these things by yourself. I'm overwhelmed half the time. You have graphics, you have to worry about putting out new music, who's going to produce it, writing lyrics. So yeah, it can be a daunting task trying to
I
keep up,
also
man.
but Manny, I also come from an era where I was with a record label. Casablanca was like the Motown of the 60s.
Yeah.
Casablanca Records was the hottest disco label in the world.
Sure.
So all of this was done for us. And without a label, in the last 15 years, 10 years, many artists have navigated the waters because record deals are not just tossed out or you get signed to a label because you sound good and you look good.
Sure.
So today you have to learn editing.
Yeah.
Doing your interviews.
You're essentially your own record label.
You're essentially a record company.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it is. You do everything. How to fund, how to market,
That's why I don't have a manager. Because if a manager can't do or pick up the phone and open a door or introduce me to someone, and I can, then why do I need a manager?
Exactly. And here's the thing, you got to make money to pay a manager or a PR people. It's hilarious to me that artists are so much more worried about getting a manager and a PR, and they have no idea what their message is. They haven't written any music. They don't have a fan base. They don't even know who their avatar is. So prior to even delving down that road, you have to have all these elements in place. And you had that thrown at you. And as we can see, that's always not a bowl of cherries either.
No. I was having a conversation with Queen Latifah because we lived in Jersey City in the same building together. We had the same condo in the same building. So, we would see each other. And one day we were just chatting and I asked her, who manages you? And she said, I manage myself and my mother. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, why am I going to pay a manager 25% of my money if they can't open doors for me? You don't need a manager. And she's very strong with that.
Yeah, I met Queen Latifah a few times. I was actually on her
phenomenal.
show. Yeah, I was on her talk show back in the day, if you remember. She's a sweetheart. Such a great businesswoman too, man. But
Miss Dana Owens.
People don't know that, man. A Brick City gave light to many, many artists, man. Many artists. But let's get to question number 3, man, which it's a sensitive topic, I think, for everyone because it talks about the hardships. And what I want to ask you is what was one of your biggest hardships? And in fact, you had one questioning your identity and how did you overcome it? Because from a personal perspective, I know there's a lot of layers to Felipe, right? That would open up plenty of opportunities for people to question your identity, as we were just discussing early on.
Well, the thing is that being biracial, as I was growing up, I never felt that it was an issue with a lot of people. Although going back and remembering elementary school when they would put on those school plays for Thanksgiving celebration or something.
Of course.
The teacher would always say to me, oh, well, Felipe, you can be the Indian because your father's Indian.
Right.
So, I would go along with it. And so on stage, we'd have the school play and there were all these pilgrims and one Indian or several Indians. Like they would literally, and this is embarrassing to say, but I'm going to say it. Well, let's take the little Puerto Rican boys and black kids and dress them up as Indians with Felipe. And I can remember that far back. So growing up, I didn't really put emphasis. I was proud of actually my
as you
dual
should,
heritage.
as you should be, right?
But today it's really it's very difficult. It's like you have to introduce yourself. It's almost like you have to walk into a room and introduce yourself and say, hi, I'm Felipe Rose. I'm biracial, I'm gay, and I'm an artist. Like we didn't do that back then in the 70s. And now everything is so, it's like you have to be the book. People have to see the book of the cover first before they even meet who you are, before they go into all the pages.
Yeah, and that's very frustrating. I get a lot of that. I get a bald guy with tattoos, and I start talking Spanish. They're like, wait a second, you're Hispanic? What? There can't be light-skinned Hispanics. It's just
I just find it beautiful when people have other heritage and not just mixed with one.
Sure.
I mean, I have cousins that are Puerto Rican mother, father. Mm-hmm. But then I have my cousins that have married into other ethnic backgrounds.
Right.
So I say that we're like the United Nations. And love is love. So if they love my family, then they love me, I love them. And that's where it goes. But I don't really put an emphasis on race. Like today, this country is heavy on the racial makeup of people. And I don't get it. I don't understand why.
Yeah. Well, and you're saying that cancel culture, unfortunately, is a dominant culture right now. And unfortunately, it's because of the lack of leadership that we've had this segregation. And you know that as well as I do. Everything has become so binary. And then you know what? On top of that, it's like you're walking on eggshells. You have to watch what you say before you offend people. Now, I understand, there's a lot of legitimacy to treating people respectfully and not making assumptions. But I think we're kind of overboard right now, and people should just love one another. You just love one another and respect one another. That's the only responsibility that we have in this life. If we walk that path, the world will be such a happier place, man. Correct me.
But that doesn't exist when you have musicians together.
Yeah.
Like the day we met when we were doing the 9/11 benefit with South Soho Johnny.
Yeah, it was a great night.
It's a great night, but all the people in that room, all the musicians and singers and dancers and people that came and attended the fundraiser, there was just nothing but love because they were walking into nothing but music and love.
Right.
But that, if you can take that and bottle that and carry that around every day of your life and share that with the world, a lot of people are not going to tap into that.
No. And listen, that's what I try to do. And I'm glad that you said that because we fully can empathize with one another. That's all I do at the end of the day with my podcast, my music, with my friendship. I just try to spread love, man. That's it. That's the only thing. That's the legacy that I truly want to leave behind. Manny left this place happier than when he got it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that we could align on that ideology. And listen, let's get into the last question because I know you've got stuff to do and I want to wrap it up.
Well, I mean, man, I blocked out good chunk of time for you.
And I love the fact, for those of you who can't see, I'm sitting watching Felipe. He's got platinum albums, gold albums, and the funny thing is, I talk to Felipe all the time. He's such a humble dude. It's ridiculous. And you deserve all the success and all the merits that you've acquired. Unfortunately, at the expense of tons of hardships and criticisms. And that's why I wanted you to be on this episode. I wanted to highlight somebody with some thick skin to prove to the world that being in this entertainment industry is not easy. And if you choose to be famous and if you choose to do it for the money, then you're in it for the wrong reasons and you're totally in the wrong sector of life. So with that being said,
have to do it. You have to do it because you love it first.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And that's what really stood out with me when I met you. I actually saw you on stage. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, boy, that guy's amazing right now. And he said to me, do you know what happened to him last week? And I said, no. He said, he lost everything at home with the recording studio, the flood, and all of that. And I froze. I could not believe what I was hearing. And yet there you were on stage, giving back, and performing. I said, I've got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
And that's how we became friends.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Because it was the energy and the love that you were giving unselfishly and sharing yourself with everyone there. Meanwhile, you had your own situation at home that was pretty horrible to look at. Thank God you guys and your family came out of it all right. But still, that what I witnessed, even after the water went away, was just mind-boggling. I even sold an award.
I remember that.
I sold an award.
I remember that. Yeah.
They put me on some advisory board of the vinyl legends of something. I forget what they're called, but I found that their initiative was not true to what their formatted thing was, about what their mission was going to be. They just basically wanted me to be an advisory board member on the Vinyl Legends Hall of Fame because I have a long arm.
Right.
Meaning I could reach out for people for them.
Of course.
And when I found out that the things that they set out to do were not happening, I decided, and also I wasn't treated very nicely, so I decided to sell the award. And someone, Katie Tallfeather,
I remember Katie.
She purchased the award, and because I said I'm going to give the money away to, I'm going to choose someone, and that person will be the benefactor. She bought the award, and she bought it and sent you the money.
Yeah.
That you were able to use for equipment. I mean, to buy sheetrock and all that stuff.
I'm beyond grateful that you did that. And you didn't have to do that, but it shows your character. And to allude to what you were saying before, I do it. It was my happy place. Being on stage, I do it unconditionally, and it was my therapeutic moment because I was.
And that's good.
Yeah.
That is perfect. Because if you didn't, then you would just be sitting home looking at an empty recording studio.
Exactly.
And, half of your house gone, and you weren't feeling sorry for yourself. You said, nope, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get out there and I'm giving back. I will get through this.
Yeah. Well, like I always say, it's in the contrast that we see the clarity. And I could sit there and mope and focus on the void, or I could be like, listen, I'm still alive, and with life comes possibility. And that's what I chose to do. And then here I am. If I didn't take that leap of faith, I wouldn't have met you and all the incredible people in that room last night. So I'm beyond grateful. And I recommend everyone, you got to face those fears. But let's get to the last question of the show, Felipe. You're amazing. And this is my signature question.
One thing I have to just say for a lot of artists for your show that are listening, do not sign a contract ever. If you don't understand a contract, go buy the book of this business of music.
Yeah, it's the music business book. It's an amazing book.
Yes, an amazing book. Just make sure that your contracts are for you, for what you want, not for what they want.
Yeah, but it's the book by, I think, Donald Passman, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, man. That's
this
a wise
business
choice.
of music.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that a lot of artists don't understand, that when they get a royalty check and they I'm gonna bring up another person that we all know, and that is the amazing Cardi B. She's very smart. I attended in 2019 some music symposium, and she was speaking, and she was talking about royalties. When you get your royalties, make sure that you pay your taxes on that first. She said, I love my hip hop brothers and sisters, but before the taxes are paid, they go out and they buy the Bentley, then they buy the big home and all that, and then they forget to pay the lawyer, and then suddenly you're in your money, your money taxes on the car and everything. So she's very smart. And I was saying to myself, you know what? That is what should be taught first. Any manager or label should tell an artist that. Be careful with your money, and they don't say that.
Yeah. Listen, brother, I'm going to wrap this up, man. And I really just want to say thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for sharing your journeys, man, and so much indispensable knowledge and your personal experiences. I know sometimes that's difficult to talk about, but I appreciate you, man. And hopefully let's do it again. And how can people find you?
People can find me at FelipeRose.com. There's a what do you call it? Where you can fill out your information, ask me questions. I'm available. I'm an ordained minister, so I've got a wedding coming up in April. That'll be my 16th wedding that I'm officiating. Wow. And of course, I paint on canvas, so I'm working on hopefully art to present myself in a gallery somewhere in the summer.
Nice. Well, I definitely want an invite, brother.
Oh yeah, everyone will. Everyone will get one.
All right, Felipe, listen, man, totally appreciate you. Have an amazing day, and looking forward to talking to you again. Be well.
Manny, thank you. God bless. Send my best to your family, please, and your mom.
I will. You as well, man. Be well.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, producer, engineer, or any other industry professional wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or just want to share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So just send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. Thanks for listening.